Hello, everyone. My name is Harvey Brownstone, and today I am really thrilled to welcome an actress and singer who has been entertaining the world on Broadway, in the movies, and on TV since 1963. When you look at her body of work, it can truly be said without question, there is nothing that this incredibly gifted artist cannot do. I'm here with the wonderful Lesley Ann Warren. Thank you so much for joining us, Lesley.
Oh, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I know everyone wants me to ask you about Cinderella, and I promise I will, but I think it's important to note that you starred on Broadway at 17 years old in the David Merrick musical 110 in the Shade. And right after that, you won the Theatre World Award for your performance in Drat the Cat. That is an amazing debut into show business.
It is. I think about that a lot, actually, because I certainly speak to younger actresses, and it was an incredible being shot out of a cannon. I mean, and my first show was with Agnes DeMille choreographing, and I had become a ballerina at a very young age, and that was my sort of goal. And to be choreographed by one of the great legendary choreographers in both ballet and musical theater was astounding to me. That was my first show. So yeah, and then to go right into Drat the Cat subsequently and to win that award, it was, I felt like in a way that I've been readying myself, preparing for this my whole life, because I started dancing when I was 6, but still to have that kind of auspicious debut, incredible. I was so blessed.
I love the fact that you started out on Broadway because you grew up in Manhattan, and rumor has it that you used to sneak in to watch all the Broadway shows.
I did. I especially snuck into Bye Bye Birdie because I had a friend in the show, Leda Edmonds, her name was, and she was performing in the show. And I think I was 14, she was maybe 15 at the most. And she let me come backstage and watch the second act. And it was really watching that show that inspired me, excited me to go into musical theater instead of going the ballet route.
Is it true that you got into the Broadway production of Bye Bye Birdie and your parents didn't let you do it?
No, but I did get into the national company of Bye Bye Birdie. I snuck away to that audition. I didn't tell my parents. I used an assumed name. I made up a name, and I did the audition and I got it. And my parents wanted me to finish high school. They wanted me to stay, in school because I would have had to travel. And I thought my career was over. I was devastated. I was shattered. It was the end of the world. But it proved to be absolutely the right decision.
Well, your mother certainly knew something about show business. She wasn't just a nightclub singer. She was known as Manhattan's newest dream girl at the Copacabana.
That's right. I have a picture of my mother and my grandmother in front of the Copa with the awning that says Manhattan's newest dream girl. She was so gorgeous, my mom, and so sexy and so sassy, and she had a fabulous voice, and she was the epitome of glamour.
The apple didn't fall far from the tree, Lesley.
Thank you. I'll take that as a huge compliment.
It is. Many people may not be aware that you auditioned for the role of Liesl in The Sound of Music. I still can't understand how you didn't get the part. Me
too. I auditioned, I screen tested the same day that Mia Farrow tested. We were both testing and neither one of us got it. Yeah, it was a big disappointment at the time.
And while we're at it, is it true that in 1978 you auditioned for the role of Lois Lane in the Superman movie? Because you would have been great in that too.
Thank you. I was doing a play in Chicago, Vanities, with Elizabeth Ashley, and they flew me to London to do a screen test. And quite a few wonderful women were testing. I think Margot Kidder, of course, who got it. A lot of women, a lot of Stockard Channing tested, some great young women at the time. And yeah, I didn't get it again. I was I was crushed. But
I believe in destiny. There were greater things in store for you. Okay, Lesley, I know you've done this a million times, but we have to go there. In 1965, you burst into everybody's living room in the 1965 television production of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. You have been heard to say that your audition was traumatic. Why?
Well, I don't know if it was traumatic, but it was bad. I did a bad audition. I was 18, I think, and I was terrified. I was terrified to audition for Richard Rodgers and company. And the director, Charles Dubin, had seen me on Broadway in 110 in the Shade. And, you know, when I auditioned, it wasn't good. And they said, you know, thank you, but no thanks. And Charles Dubin said to them, please, 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 to Mr. Rodgers specifically, see her again. She was so nervous and she was so frightened. She's so young, you know, da, da, da. So the next audition, they brought me to Mr. Rodgers' apartment on Park Avenue, and Johnny Green, the musical supervisor, was there, and Charles Dubin, the director, and Eugene Warren, the choreographer. And he ushered everyone out of the room, Mr. Rodgers, and he had me sit down next to him on the piano bench, and he played My Funny Valentine, and he sang it, you know, bit by bit, and he had me repeat it to him afterwards as we were going along. And that's what got me the job. It was crazy. I mean, it was so magical. And I think because it was just he and I sitting there together, and he was so sweet and so kind and so protective, I felt that tremendous fear I had went away.
That's amazing. I'm so glad it did. You know, one of the reasons I wanted so much to interview you is so that I could tell you that as a kid, I was very badly bullied, and your rendition of In My Own Little Corner from Cinderella got me through some of the darkest and toughest moments of my youth. And I just want to thank you for such a hopeful and healing performance.
It's so sweet. Thank you. I'm very moved by that. You know, I had the same reaction from, I've had it from quite a few people, but specifically Lee Daniels, the director, who directed a million things, Precious, and, you know, just a million things. And most recently, the United States versus Billie Holiday. And he wrote me this letter that was really verbatim what you said. And we became friends. I was so incredibly touched by that. And Rob Marshall wrote me a letter about not saying that he was bullied, but saying how he and his sister would watch it every year and how it made him want to do musical theater. And, you know, there are no words for how much that means to me.
Well, what was it about the Cinderella character that resonated with you so deeply? Because we could see it.
Mm-hmm. I did not think of it as a fairy tale. I thought of it as I didn't think about it so much as feel it. I became her, you know, her that feeling of wanting love and being so longing for something that she didn't have, and being isolated and not part of, and, you know, not included, and just all of those feelings were very real to me. And I was able to really go to that place that I went to, you know, and lived in her skin in a way that there was no separation between me and the character.
That's for sure. In 1967, you made your film debut in The Happiest, Millionaire, which was the last movie that Walt Disney worked on before his death. I just wondered, did you get to interact with him at all?
I did. He was, again, I came out to California. I was in New York, and they brought me out, and I didn't drive. So they put me up at the Beverly Hills Hotel, which is very swanky and fabulous. And they brought me to the set every day, and to the studio, and I rehearsed. I rehearsed those musical numbers by Yum Pum Pum, and, you know, some of the musical numbers, the waltz, and they costumed me, they did my hair and makeup and all of that, and then we rehearsed the dialogue. And it took about a week to 10 days. And then we did this major screen test. And Mr. Disney is the one who had the final say on everything. You know, he knew, I always say this, but it's really true. He knew what the animators were doing, what they were serving in the commissary, and what color ribbon was in my hair. I mean, he was so deeply involved in making every decision for how he ran his studio. And so he was on the set a lot, and he also invited me with other people, other members of the cast, to his home. And I got to, you know, be with him in a social situation, but an intimate social situation, which was incredible. And he was nothing but just glorious with me. You know, I'm so grateful that I got that time with him before his passing.
Oh, I think that's amazing. During the 70s, you were in a lot of TV shows, from playing Dana Lambert in Mission Impossible to The Legend of Valentino in 1975. And then in 1978, you won a Best Actress Golden Globe for your performance as Mary Ann in the Harold Robbins miniseries 79 Park Avenue. Was that one of your favorite roles?
It is one of my favorite roles. And the funny sort of connected story to what you brought up before was when I didn't get Superman, I went back to Chicago, where I was doing Vanities, and then they brought me back to LA to screen test for 79 Park Avenue. And I was, you know, there were probably 7 other young women testing, and the character was Polish, and all these other women looked much more middle European than me. They just did. And so I thought, oh, I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to get this. Anyway, I killed it on the screen test, if I say so myself. And then I flew back to Chicago. And when I landed in Chicago, they were paging me. And Universal had bought me out of my contract in the play, put me back on a plane once I packed, and went into Universal that weekend and did 96 costume changes for that over the weekend. And then started shooting on Monday. And it was, again, you know, it's a different time in my life. And so I had different sort of experiences to call on, but I really resonated with that character again, so strongly. And it was very, very hard for me to let go of her after it was over.
Well, I remember watching your acceptance speech when you won the Golden Globe, and you seemed completely shocked that you won. Didn't you realize how good you were?
You know, I didn't think of it that way. I just, I've never thought of this. I truly mean this. I've never thought about awards. I've never thought, oh, this could get me an award. Never, never, never. And so on set, I was thrilled that Paul Wendkos, the director, loved what I was doing. And I felt it, and I knew that I was doing what I had intended to do with the role. But I never thought past that. I never thought, oh, this is going to get me an award. I never did. So when I was nominated, and I can't remember who the other nominees were, but I remember thinking, I'll never get it. You know, I'll never get it. And then, so I was in complete shock and unprepared. I had no prepared speech because I was so sure that I wasn't going to get it. So it was, you know, it was just an incredible honor.
Your fans were very proud of you that night, I'll tell you. Before we move on from the 70s, I have to ask you about your experience on the Carol Burnett show. You were 19 years old when you appeared on her show. Can you share some of your memories of working with Carol and that fabulous ensemble?
Yeah, again, it was she was such an icon, and I was 19. So I had to sort of totally gear myself up to be on set with her, you know, and just to do that number at the end of the show with her. But the one thing that I always felt secure about was my dancing. So because it was a musical number, I felt like I knew how to do that. I didn't necessarily know how to be around Carol Burnett, but I knew how to do that. So I relied on all my training and all my, theater experience, and brought that to the situation and had a ball. I mean, she is everything you see, everything you know about her. She is funny and charming and warm and inviting, and she made it as easy as it could possibly be for a 19-year-old girl.
I'm interested in your comment about the dancing, because when I watched you in Life Stinks with Mel Brooks, it struck me that your capacity for physical comedy seems to have been informed by your experience and training as a dancer. Am I right?
Absolutely right. I think that, a dance background and a serious dance background gives one such a connectedness to your body. And your body, you know your instrument, you know how it works, you know how to utilize it. And then as I got older and started doing characters per se, I was able to infuse my characters with a physicality that was important to the character, and the uninhibited quality that came from the performing arts on stage. So all that fused together for me to be able to do. I will say that in Life Stinks, that was the broadest comedy that I've ever done, the broadest physical comedy. And I was scared. I was scared of the scene where I'm supposed to die choking to death. And, I was scared of it. And because it was a kind of vaudevillian comedy that I hadn't done, I'd never done. But Mel was incredible, and just so, he held my hand walking to the set because he knew I was a wreck. And then encouraged me and pushed me, and, pushed me to go further and further, which was, great, because I would have played it, I would have been more afraid. And his kind of pushing me to be more courageous was the right thing.
Well, you were one of the youngest people ever to be accepted at the Actors Studio. I think you were 17. And you studied with Lee Strasberg for 10 years. Do you credit him with giving you the foundation you needed to be able to play such a wide variety of roles?
Oh, yes. I mean, I credit him for everything that I've done in terms of acting, because I am a method actress. My work with him was very serious. I studied with him privately, in his private classes for probably 4 years. And then I got into the Actors Studio right away. So I also was able to go to the studio and watch people like Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward and Al Pacino and people, do their work and get up and do mine. But everything that I do in my acting really emanates from the work I did with him. Absolutely.
Well, I have to tell you that of all the parts you've played, my absolute favorite, besides Cinderella, is Norma Cassidy, the quintessential chorus girl in Victor Victoria. Who were you channeling in that performance?
I wasn't channeling anybody. One of the things that I did when I sort of started to create her was I imagined with my coach, her name is Norena, we imagined that she lived in the Lower East Side in a family of 14. So she always had to yell and be very aggressive to get her point across. And that when she was a young teenage girl, she would work at Woolworths, which most people won't know what that is, but it's like a 5 and dime. And she would sit at the counter and read the movie magazines. And she wanted to be like Jean Harlow. And she copied her makeup and she copied her look. And that was all, something that I was imagining. And somehow, and then I made up sort of a whole history of her, which is part of what Lee taught me to do. But just getting in the costume, getting with that accent, thinking about who she was when she was growing up, brought out this whole other side to me. Plus the idea that I could be antisocial and everybody loved it was a big present in terms of Norma.
I read that the idea of you doing a big flashy musical number in that movie was actually like an afterthought by Blake Edwards, the director. Is that right?
That's right. we shot in London, we shot at Pinewood, and he would always have dailies, the screening of the shooting of the day before, which are called dailies. He would show them on a big, huge movie screen in the Pinewood studio, and he would ask everybody to come, the actors, the grips, the painters, the craft service, everybody, because he liked to see where the real laughs were. And so we were sitting there watching the dailies one day, and he kind of leaned over to me, and this was about probably a month into shooting. And he said, "Do you still sing?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he said, "Do you still dance?" And I said, "I do." And he said, "Well, I want to see more of Norma." And my character, and he brought Henry Mancini and Leslie Brickus over from America. And they wrote this fantastic number. And we rehearsed it with Patty Stone, the choreographer, for, probably, I don't know, almost 2 weeks. And then we shot it with 4 cameras. And it was, a dream come true.
Oh, it was spectacular. You got a Golden Globe nomination and an Academy Award Best Supporting Actress nomination for that role. Lesley, you should be so proud of the stamp that you put on that movie, because your performance was just as memorable as Julie Andrews, and that's not easy to do.
You're telling me. She's the queen. Yeah, no, it's so funny because the first time I saw it, it was a private screening at Blake's house, at Blake and Julie, and all the actors were there. And everybody was laughing uproariously. And I was in shock. I couldn't believe that I had done that. It was the first time I really saw it all together, and I was shocked. I thought, oh, this is the end of my career. They're going to throw me out of Hollywood, on and on and on. I was so upset at what I was seeing. And then I went to the first big screening that Universal had, and it was at the Shubert Theater it no longer exists, but it was in Hollywood, in Century City. And I went with my agent, and it was packed, and they had a red carpet and the whole thing. And that was the first time I realized, oh my God, I'm really funny in this movie, and it's really great. I could tell by the reaction of the audience, it was, and then everything after that was kind of a whirlwind.
Well, I love that you made a movie with Julie Andrews, because you both played Cinderella. It had a kind of a karmic feel to it.
When I met Blake for the movie, I didn't audition. I just met him, and we sat in his office and talked. And one of the things we laughed about was that Julie and I both played Cinderella, and how we both came up through that sort of Disney-esque world, Yeah.
Well, one of the things I really admire about you and your work is your amazing versatility. You can do comedy as easily as you do drama. You're equally at home on the set of The Muppets as you are on the set of In Plain Sight, and everything in between. And as I think about that now, I realize you've never really been typecast as an actress. How did you manage that when everybody in Hollywood gets typecast?
I think I know that it was always extremely important to me. The reason that I became an actress was I was drawn to the idea of portraying different women in different stages, and with different backgrounds and different perspectives and different issues, and struggles. And so I never wanted to be known as one thing. And a lot of people do. And it's great, kudos to them for sure. But that wasn't what was appealing to me about becoming an actress. And so I guess I always thought of myself as a character actress, inherently. So I made a point, I think, of taking, after I did Victor Victoria, I did Choose Me, which was this independent, very arty, film that I totally love, and very, very, very different. And, I just kept doing that. I tried really hard to find those opportunities.
Well, because you did that, your list of credits is really prolific. There's so many colors to the palette of your talent. You appeared in music videos with Aerosmith and the Eagles. You co-starred with everybody from Mel Brooks to Julie Andrews to Willie Nelson to Whoopi Goldberg. I'm just wondering, do you have a favorite movie or a TV show that you've done?
You know, I get asked that a lot. And the truth is I don't. I have favorites, you know, but, you know, it's like asking, who's your favorite child? You know, it's an impossible question. I mean, 79 Park Avenue is certainly one of them, you know, Choose Me is another, Victor Victoria, of course, Cinderella, you know, Clue. I did a movie pre-COVID called 3 Days with Dad. That was a small independent movie with Brian Dennehy at one of his last films. And I'm so proud of that, you know, so it's you know, it's because I've had such a long career, because I've had such a varied career, I feel, you know, proud of a lot of the work that I've done.
As you should be. Now,
you.
you know, of course, I have to ask you about your recurring role on Will and Grace as Tina, the mistress of Will's father. You all looked like you were having so much fun on that set. Can you tell us a bit about what it was like to be on that show?
Well, I'm totally in awe of Megan and Sean, and their comedic chops are just astounding. I mean, we would, you know, Deborah and Eric are fabulous, but those two were like, I don't know where their inspiration came from. Watching them on set in rehearsal and creating these sort of crazy antics, it was so inspiring. So yes, it was great fun, and it was so great to work with Sidney Pollack because he had produced a movie I did called Songwriter years prior, and you know, obviously I adored him as a director, and then to be able to actually act with him, and he was a very serious actor. You know, he would argue about context, subtext, and you know, have opinions, and you know, he was fabulous to work with.
Well, you really nailed the part. You absolutely embodied that character of Tina. You really did.
What was funny about that was that I got a call from Max Mushnick, who's one of the co-creators, and all he said to me on the phone was, "Would you like to do the show?" And all I can tell you about the character is she's got a funny laugh. That's all he said. And I was like, okay, you know, well, sure, because I love the show. And, you know, it just sort of evolved. Because the thing about doing sitcoms, in my experience, which is limited, but the script changes daily. So you can't really prepare, you know, you have to sort of fly by the seat of your pants and hope that it's going to work. So that character, Tina, kind of evolved.
It sure did. Is there anything you haven't done yet that you'd like to do? Is there anyone you haven't worked with yet that you'd like to?
There are lots of people I'd like to work with, you know, lots of formidable, wonderful actors and directors. You know, directors are the key for me. You know, it's when I get to work with a director that I admire or someone who I've known, or you know, whatever, it's that's where a lot of my attention goes. You know, sadly in television, a lot of times you don't get to have that experience because it's so fast, and the director is basically trying to get it in on time, and you know, is stressed. But that's there isn't one person I'd like to work with or one director I'd like to work with. You know, I can't really honestly say. I'm thrilled to keep working. You know, that's an incredible blessing.
I think you're an incredible blessing. You are such a joy to talk with, Lesley. You do everything an entertainer is supposed to do. You educate, you inspire, you comfort. I have enjoyed every moment of our time together, and I'm going to cherish the memory of this interview always.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, you're delightful, and I appreciate the words. Thank you.
I thank you with all my heart for taking the time to be on our show. I wish you every success and happiness and good health and everything you do.
You too, and a big hug, virtual.
A big hug to you. Our guest has been superstar Lesley Ann Warren. My name is Harvey Brownstone. Thank you to our producer, Steve Silver, and thank you all for joining us. See you next time.
Be sure to check out more great interviews with Harvey Brownstone on harveybrownstoneinterviews.com.